stop the live stream because I'm an idiot. But we're going anyways. What a mess. Oh boy. Well, it's September 5th.
Welcome to the show.
Everybody who was joining our show is now going to have to join another version of our show because I screwed up. But that's okay. For those that are with us, welcome. It's September 5th, and there's a couple of quick things that we need to call out. First, Cal Ripken Jr.'s 21-31 game anniversary was today. Is today. I don't know how to say that. And then 2 days ago, maybe it was yesterday, Jim Abbott's no-hitter. For those who don't know, Jim Abbott, one-handed pitcher for the Yankees, threw a no-hitter. Pretty incredible feat in the game of baseball. So yeah, that happened, and I wanted to just make sure that both of those were called out. I gotta wrap myself around the fact that I need to find the new live stream. Okay, how's everybody doing? Welcome to September Baseball. We are in it officially.
We're here. Like I said, I'm always excited about it, but I'm also sad about it. But I'm going to stop saying that because I do it every time we get on here.
Yeah, I feel like you just have to be excited about it. I don't know what there is to be sad about. It's just preparing us for the best time of the year, which is October baseball.
I will say this is...
Because your team's there and my team's there, right?
I'm a baseball fan this time of year. I've always been that way. I'll continue being that way.
I will say this, as a sports fan, the next 2 months is probably my favorite 2 months of being a sports fan.
I agree with that.
MLB playoffs and then college football, NFL in full swing. This is my favorite 2 months of being a sports fan. The only thing that compares is March with college baseball full swing, March Madness, and MLB starting up. That's a close second for me.
I think that truly my favorite time of year is the time of year when baseball is beginning. It's just hard. It's not even just that baseball's beginning. It's like the start of like springtime, the time when, you start getting outside a little bit more, at least for those of us that don't live in perpetually warm weather states, me and Ryan. And then I love this time of year because there's nothing better than waking up and throwing on a sweatshirt. And there's nothing better than finishing the day around a fire with football and postseason baseball and all these other things getting ready to go. So, all that aside, we are here, and I have a couple different topics that I think are worth talking about this week. I want to start with our victory lap on Colson Montgomery. I think that's a great place for us to start.
I don't disagree.
How many episodes ago was it, Ryan, that we gave the whole rundown of Colson Montgomery? 4 or 5 episodes ago?
More than that, my friend. More than that. I think
Wow.
we're closer to 10 episodes, believe it or not.
It's crazy that we have more than 10 episodes, period. It's crazy that they just let anyone have a podcast at this point. But you know what? It was definitely before we talked about Jackson's time at the Speedway Classic, which was phenomenal.
That was a month ago.
This is back on July 1st. We talked about Colson Montgomery. That was about 2 or 3 days before he got called up. Colson Montgomery, since July 1st, has been on an absolute tear. I mean, of epic proportions. I know we're talking about at least from a power perspective, I know we're talking about Juan Soto, and, he's been absolutely unbelievable as well. But Colson Montgomery, for a guy who has not been in the league or showed us what he's capable of at this level, from July 1st to now, we're talking about a guy with 17 homers who's slugging .547. Even with a .227 batting average, he's still rocking a 123 WRC plus while playing a pretty solid shortstop. I don't think it's an understatement to say that Chicago has found a potential middle of the order, middle of the infield bat for a very long time if they do this correctly. And I think there's a lot to be said for what Chris Getz and Ryan Fuller did. And we talked at length about this in that episode. And if you want to go listen to that episode, it's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube. Again, it's all the way back on July 1st. You'll see we titled it About Colson Montgomery. But I think when you look back at what they chose to do coming out of spring training and say, he's not making the team out of spring training. We're going to nip this in the bud now, and we're going to just say, hey, start the year in AAA, see how it goes. It very clearly wasn't going the way he wanted it to go. So then the next conversation was, let's get this sorted. So you move him to the complex league. He goes to the complex league, fixes whatever's going on. We talked about the fact that he changed his stance, his stride a little bit, seems to be seeing the ball better, goes on an absolute rampage for a month and a half in the minor leagues, and basically made Chris Getz's decision easy. There was no other place he could put him besides the next level. And so now I say again, 17 bombs since July 1st. 32 runs, 42 RBIs in only 199 plate appearances. So,
yeah, the thing.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead.
Go ahead, Jackson.
Yeah, looking at his advanced metrics, the thing I'm seeing is there's both some regression that could take place and a whole lot of room to grow. The whiff and chase numbers are both a little high. The K rate's a little high, but the bat speed, barrel rate, X slug off the charts. Sweet spot percentages off the charts. So I'm guessing his numbers are going to tail off a little bit here, but there's so much room for improvement that the sky is truly the limit for him. This is also a guy, again, since July 1st, has 5 outs above average, which is pretty impressive numbers for a guy, and that's very much an accumulation stat. Like, I think the sky's truly the limit with him, especially with how good he's been and with how much stuff he can still work on.
Yeah, let's make sure we remember that this is a big-bodied shortstop. He's listed at 6'3". He's not a small guy, so the fact that he's playing shortstop at that level at the current moment from a range perspective is something that shows a lot. But I break it back down to what we saw from Colson Montgomery to begin this year. Again, has a minor injury, doesn't make the team out of camp, didn't hit great in spring training when he got the opportunity for, but really didn't get enough of an opportunity. He was striking out almost 50% of the time prior to, I believe it was May 13th, when they ended up taking him out of AAA and sending him back to the complex league. Again, Jackson can check my dates because I'm probably wrong, but I'll be upfront about that one. I think the biggest thing that I see is this. It's super simple. I totally agree with what you said, Jackson, from his advanced metrics. But when I look at Colson Montgomery, I see him continuing to do what we know Colson Montgomery was meant to do, which is hit the ball over the fence, right? We're looking at a guy who is always going to have a higher chase rate. He's always going to be an upper end K rate type of player. And frankly, as Kyle Schwarber has showed us, that's completely fine, right? If he can do all of this and play a slightly above average shortstop, they're looking at a guy who's going to be there for an extremely long time. One of the most interesting facts, though, about Montgomery is he's not hitting the fastball well. He's hitting cut fastballs and sinkers well, but he is not hitting straight four-seam fastballs well, which is not something that you see in these scenarios when guys break out. Because as we've talked about many a times, the first thing they do at the major league level is test your ability to hit a major league fastball. Frankly, he hasn't hit major league four-seamers well. I believe if I pull up his page here real quick, I think he's hitting somewhere around 140 and slugging 400 against the four-seam fastball in 243 attempts with a -4 run value at the current moment. But anything that bends and anything that's spun, he's hitting to the absolute moon. And again, that is including sinkers and cutters. The transformation of what Colson Montgomery becomes throughout his career is going to be very interesting to see. But I would have to agree, it does seem like the White Sox have potentially found an absolute dude here who should probably be a prototypical three-hole type hitter. He's the type of guy who you're going to get more run value out of him for the fact that when there's nobody on base early in games, because that does happen, when you're hitting three, he's not going to roll into a double play and he's going to put the ball over the fence, which is your most effective way to score when there's nobody on base.
Yeah, and I think, I'm glad you brought up the defense, Jackson. I think the biggest thing, and we're seeing it with some shortstops this year, right? Ellie hasn't been great defensively. Volpe's been okay defensively. It's really hard to find. I mean, truly, if you look at Volpe's stats, he has not been atrocious defensively. It's
just the last month.
It's just because you don't see any of the plays he makes. And this is, I'm not sitting here to stick my neck out for Volpe. It's a very easy fix. Volpe's problems could all be solved if he would just come get the baseball and stop sitting on his heels. But
-7 outs above average. Just gonna throw that out there.
That's great. Okay. But either way, the biggest thing is it's hard to stick in that position if you don't play defense well. If you don't show range, if you don't make the routine play. And I think it's great to see that while Colson Montgomery is still trying to find his footing in terms of just traditional contact hitting, the power seems to be there, but taking good at bats, hitting better against fastballs, being able to compartmentalize that and still play good defense is really important. See guys on Twitter all the time like Zach Cozart talk about this. At the big league level, you can't let your defense be affected by your offense and vice versa. And I think that's one of the best things you can take away from what he's done up to this point, outside of the power.
And I think a really good example when it comes to the defensive discussion when we're talking about young guys who have the type of upside or ceiling that Colson Montgomery has is a guy like CJ Abrams, right? Unfortunately, defensively has been consistently somewhat of a miss. He truly does have the ability to get to every baseball, but he is a guy with a -8 outs above average at the current moment at shortstop, right? He's a guy that the Nationals could look to have higher production levels from at second base if they needed him to, right? Again, shortstop is not all about out-athleticing the next guy. We see that a lot in the outfield right now is the way that I put that. What people don't realize about defense is it's less about are guys athletic enough to get the ball nowadays. It's a lot about do guys have the fundamental ability to make plays on a consistent basis. It's no longer can you get to the ball and the hole that we all watch Jeter make a jump throw on. Because guess what? Guys get to that ball now and don't need a jump throw. Right. It's just the truth about the way the athleticism has changed. But from a defensive perspective, every single guy in the league right now needs Ron Washington down their throat. It's just what it is.
Well, it's so fascinating, right? Because you say Volpe's got a -7 OAA. OAA is a range stat. I think it just speaks more to the fact that, like, yeah, I'm sure his OAA stinks. He doesn't move his feet. It's also why he's not fielding the ball right at him. But if you want to look at DRS, you want to look at any sort of infield stat, just on the whole, like, it's not as bad as it could be, but it's certainly way below what you'd expect from a guy who won a Gold Glove. I want to talk about CJ Abrams real quick, actually, because I saw a tweet about this. I think it was Sam from Discuss Baseball put together just a quick tweet about CJ Abrams kind of flying under the radar this year, and I don't think that's incorrect. I think these numbers he's putting up this year are better than we've seen from him on the whole. We're talking about a guy who's almost gotten to the same point in hits, almost to the same point on average of home runs, but he's got a higher average, a much better OBP, a higher slug, a higher OPS. And for a premier position like a shortstop from a young guy, having a 770 plus OPS with 17 bombs and hitting over 260 for a young team that's not really competing right now, but just trying to grow, I think is everything you could have wanted to see from a CJ Abrams this year, especially since he's elevated his base running game. And on top of that, I think his ability to just take a better at bat, strike out a little bit less is one thing that, can give you hope going forward for the future of just his ability to solidify himself somewhere between the 5 to 7 range in a lineup for a long time.
And I'll go one further and say that I think Abrams, once it comes down to it, is probably a legitimate leadoff hitter for a long time. One of the things that's so impressive about CJ Abrams is when you look at Abrams' actual production metrics and line through the first 4 seasons of his career, he's gotten better in every single spot that you'd want him to. The slash line has increased every single year. We're looking at a guy who now, for the 3rd year in a row, actually I believe 4th year in a row, is going to increase what his OPS ends up being with a higher average and a better, specifically on-base percentage from a guy who we know can absolutely be a terror on the base pass when he has an opportunity. I think all we're seeing is one thing that I've continued to preach throughout the time that we've done this, which is the major leagues has an inability to be patient with young players. Abrams came up at 20 years old. Yeah, it was going to take a minute. I don't know what else to tell you. I remember what I was doing at 20 years old, and it wasn't taking at bats in San Diego. So I really don't disagree. I do like what Abrams is doing. I think he's a guy who is an absolute building block for the Nationals at the current moment. I do think we're going to eventually talk about the positional value of him because he has not been as consistent as he needs to be at short. But to his credit, he does consistently seem more and more comfortable. I think it's a lot to do with overall levels of confidence and then just the speed of the baseball off the bat at the major league level. Plus, add into play when you've got these massive dudes hitting heavy topspin balls and the way it jumps at you. This is not meant to be excuses, but we talk a lot about in things like men's league how you've got a guy who's a great defender in men's league. Well, when the ball's not coming off the bat at 115 miles an hour, it's a lot easier to make a play.
Absolutely.
Just pointing out, Ryan, I'm 20 years old right now, and I'm also not playing professional baseball at the moment.
Are you sure, Jackson? Are you sure?
I want to shift over. I want to shift over to another young shortstop who maybe on the flip side is not having as good of a year as we maybe wanted. Now, he had stretches that they were better than expected, but overall, from a rolling stats perspective across the year, Mason Wynn has been a little bit less than stellar for what we would have liked to see. Now, he's not swinging and missing a ton. He's not striking out a ton. And his defense is great. He runs great. But it doesn't help if you're only on base at a 311 clip that you base run well. You got to be on base more than that for it to truly be effective and important. And he's not hitting the ball hard enough, and he's not squaring it up consistently enough to get on base. What types of things I guess would you guys like to see from Mason Wynn? And I know I have ideas of what I see based on looking at just a couple of things that I'd like to see him change going into next year to improve that. But I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on the whole.
I mean, for me, I've watched him play a lot, obviously, and he's a guy with his defensive ability. If he's just slightly better offensively, this is a 10-year, 15-year big leaguer. But just looking at a savant page, this is a guy who has. You're not going to look at it. This is a guy who's throwing 100 miles an hour at 18, 19 years old. He has raw power, raw strength.
Yep.
I think there's a famous Babe Ruth quote, never let the fear of striking out get in the way. I think he's doing that right now. He's not whiffing a whole lot. He's not striking out a whole lot. He's hitting 255. That's not bad. He needs to catch some more barrels. Take some more A swings, swing harder at some balls, whiff a little bit more, but get some more extra base hits. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And as you take more pitches, you're going to walk a little bit more, be more aggressive on when you're getting your pitch. That's just kind of where I'm at with him right now. He's such a talented defensive player. This is a guy who can get a 750 OPS. I'm all in on him getting paid big time by the Cardinals for the next 10, 15 years.
I mean, if we're being honest here, I'm not surprised. I think that's the thing that people have to be careful with here, right? The league is going to adjust to you. Mason Wynn hits fastballs well at the major league level. It's the one thing he's still hitting well at the current moment. They're overloading him with spin right now because they know at the current moment that's the way to get him out. I do agree with Jackson here. I think there is a level of aggressiveness that needs to go back into what he's doing. I think he needs to go out and I say this as if I'm the guy, but the level of focus on doing damage, I think, for Mason Wynn over protecting from a strikeout is super important. I think pitch selection, we see a lot of guys anymore because of the technology that we have and the ability for a machine to spin the baseball for us. I could see him doing a ton of shape work or pitch shape work in the offseason in order to really help him dial in the ability to hit a major league breaking ball and adjust back to what the league has shown him this year. Because again, the question here is not can he hit the fastball. The question right now for me with Mason Wynn is can he hit spin and can he hit off speed when he's sequenced to off speed. So I think there's a lot of shape drills that will go into the offseason for him. I think this is a blip in the radar. Very talented guy, quite obviously a hard worker. So I'm excited to see what he does.
I want to show you guys something. I want to see if I can. Yeah, I can bring it up here. This is what I think. I think it's a mentality, and this is what I think is probably the biggest thing for me. This is his spray chart in 2025. Very, very clear approach here. Yes, right. Very clear approach. You start looking at some of these hits he's got the other way. It's not stuff that's blistered, but everything is over here. This is 2024. I don't think it's hard to figure out what the problem here is. The problem is that his pull rate from his first year in the league in 2023 to 2025 has changed a substantial amount. It has gone from 28% pull to 40% pull. I'm not saying you can't pull the baseball. Pulling the baseball is fine. But you have to understand with that approach that sometimes pulling the baseball comes with the right timing on the right pitch. I'd be very curious to go back and watch his season and see how many times he fouls the ball off pull side way down the line. It's a matter of being out in front on that spin, not getting to do damage on it, swinging and missing at it or rolling it over. And then when you do get the fastball, your fastball timing is to hit it pull side and you do this. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is focusing up the middle of the field just a little bit more to where you turn those pull side off speed swings into home runs and you turn the fastball swings into home runs to dead center. Because it's very clear he has the power to do that because he has done it before in this league. I think if you just take the mental note of trying to work up the middle of the field a little bit more and seeing the ball just a little bit deeper, I think Mason Wynn's numbers go up and to the right. No question in my mind. I don't think it takes a lot. I just think we've gotten to the point where we're a hair pull happy. And again, I don't have a problem with pulling the baseball. I think his pull air rate is fine. I think, which everybody loves, but I think the problem is his pull air rate to the left side of the left field foul line is also pretty high. And that's not very beneficial. Those are foul balls and those are strikes.
I think it'd be interesting to find out, though, if that was part of a thought process going into the offseason, right? We know that pull air rate is a very heavy utilized metric from an analytical perspective, and the thought process is if you pull the ball in the air, you're going to have good results. The problem, as we've always talked about with that thought process, is most guys who are great at pulling the ball in the air don't try to pull the ball in the air. So it is a curious question of whether or not this was an approach adjustment to see if we could get more than essentially the 15 home runs we saw last year.
Yep.
Again, it's just not something you have to try to do. It's a result that happens from taking the swing you are trying to take, which in this case would go back to what Jackson said, which is getting off your A swing on a regular basis.
Because let's face it, strikeout numbers haven't changed much, walk numbers haven't changed much, but what he's doing on the pitches he's given have changed a whole heck of a lot. His defense has elevated, by the way, an insane amount. Like, his F-WAR is almost the same, but it's almost cumulatively driven by how good his defense is.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, as a shortstop, it's not a bad thing, but I think it's good to understand why that's happening. So that was another guy I just wanted to talk about because I thought that was, we went on the side of young guys that were having better than expected years, and Mason went on the flip side having not as good of a year. I was curious your guys' thoughts. What could make it better? Okay. Flipping topics now. Are the Rays a playoff team? Coming into tonight, the Tampa Bay Rays are now 2 games back of a wild card spot behind said Mariners. The Mariners are not playing the best baseball at the moment, 4-6 in their last 10 on a 3-game losing streak. I think what they struggle with is, as a team that is, what are they now? 6 games over 500 with a plus 11 run differential. So either their pitching is really good and they're winning every close game, or their pitching is not good and they are losing big time. And I think the struggle there is, A, that doesn't really play in the postseason. You got to be able to win a lot of different types of games. But B, it makes me wonder if they've got what it takes to overtake down the stretch because their arms are not doing what they were doing. George Kirby looks like he can't get past 5 innings. Logan Gilbert has not been as effective. Brian Wu, now after never going less than 6+ innings, has gone 2 straight outings where he has not gone that long. All these things cumulatively are bringing me to this feeling of the Rangers are a game and a half out of the wild card. The Royals are 2 games out of the wild card. And the Rays are two games out of the wild card. All 3 of those teams are playing fairly good baseball right now. And the Rays, during a night last night where they had to pick up a half a game, did what they had to do, won a game, picked up a half a game, and they're starting to play even better. So I ask you guys again with all that information: are the Rays a playoff team in 2025?
No.
That was quick. Let me hear it.
I'm I'm a very big believer in the Mariners. I like that team a lot. I think they're a very fun team. And then I think I'm also a big believer in the Rangers. So I'm stuck between those two for that last wild card spot. I think just pitching depth. I like both those teams a lot more coming down the stretch. However, a big part of baseball is playing your best baseball at the right moment. I think the best baseball for the Mariners and Rangers is better than the best baseball for the Rays. But the Rays are playing their best baseball right now, and if they just continue to catch fire over the next couple weeks, it could easily be their spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong about that. Feels like they're getting hot at the right time. Ryan, what do you got?
Though I don't totally disagree with either of you here. I think 7 in a row probably needed to happen in the middle of September, not the start of September. It's kind of how this works for me from a playoff perspective. Unfortunately, baseball does have a way of evening itself out. I think the biggest thing for the Rays is they've been one of the most volatile commodities in all of baseball throughout the entire season. So with that being said, the question is can they truly have a sustained run at the right time? Right? We've talked a
Right.
lot about what team could be this year's Detroit Tigers, and listen, could it be the Rays from a standpoint of really bringing it up the rear after we kind of wrote them off for a hot second here? Absolutely. But baseball is a game of consistency. And the one thing that the Rays have not had this year on the field is consistency outside of like Junior Caminero. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I really like the roster, and I think they have the ability to make the playoffs. However, they're another team that I think is truly opening the door to a relatively sustained playoff run or potential playoff run over the next 5 years this season, because they do have some more firepower coming up through the organization, plus another offseason to reinforce everything that they've done. I am going to say at the current moment that the Rays probably come up just short, and agree with Jackson here that it is probably going to be the Rangers or the Mariners for that last spot. But I'm going to double back down on what I said, which is the Mariners are going to end up winning the division. So it's going to be the Astros who need to figure themselves out.
Yeah, the Astros are going to need a little bit of help right now, just in general. Just again, guys going on the IL. Again, as it has been, they did get Yordan Alvarez back, but boy, they are struggling right now to just keep guys on the roster. I want to talk a little bit. Speaking of the Astros, I want to talk a little bit about what happened this past week with umpire Brian Walsh against the Yankees. I'm sure you guys saw both things that happened back-to-back games. Walsh was on the bench or was behind the plate to end the game on some pretty bad calls against the Yankees. And then last night, line drive to DJ LeMahieu, clearly caught it. We have covered this over and over again. Balls inside the infield umpire's view are non-reviewable for catch and no catch. I go back and forth because I do live in this headspace, and this is going to be my 7-minute soapbox. I do live in this headspace of like, baseball is baseball. But on the flip side, like, we have reviews. There's no reason we should not have reviewed that when the MLB goes to Aaron Boone today and says, hey, by the way, that call was wrong. That was a catch, and we should have called it a catch. Great. We could have done this 10 hours ago, and we could have just had the guy out on the bench on said play. There's no reason you should come and tell me that now. I'd rather just not know. So I think across the board, there's the side of Brian Walsh and this nonsense of, this guy hates the Yankees, which I don't think is the case. But overall, we're looking at this situation with umpires. It's been a little bit of a mess, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts, especially with what happened earlier this week or this weekend. Earlier this week. It's Friday.
I think it's pretty simple for me. I think, one, we have enough technology to help ourselves get the right call I think my example would be we watch the NFL have pass interference be a reviewable call. As long as it is something that is like up to the imagination, because pass interference isn't real. I don't think that there's a good understanding. Like, that is the truth. Pass interference is a judgment call,
It's like one of
right?
those, if you can't
This is
explain it to a kindergartner, then you don't know what it is. It's like
kind
infield
of.
fly in baseball. Nobody on
So
the field ever knows what it is.
this is not a judgment call that got missed, and I think that's what's tough. I think the way you protect replay is simple: is if we truly believe it is something that is considered a judgment call, then it's not reviewable. And if it is a call that is either a yes or a no answer, then it's reviewable. I don't think this is rocket science. I don't think it's hard to put in the game. Replay over the last couple of years has already shown that when they do it right, which is 9 out of 10 times, it does not affect the length of the game all that much.
Nope.
So it's something that I think we need to be willing to utilize a little bit more. As it pertains to the bad calls, I said this to you when that happened. I'm really tired of the box. The box was the coolest thing in the world 10 years ago. It was revolutionary that we had the strike zone on the screen. For baseball fans and people who understand how a strike zone actually works, which is against what the umpire is calling that day in his version of the strike zone, that box is not real, guys. That box does not tell you anything other than give you a reference point to what the zone might be.
It's like the
Right?
yellow line in
Most
football.
of the time, absolutely. Most of the time, the zone is also on TV, not relative to the size of the player. Has anybody paid attention to what that zone looks like when Aaron Judge or Yordan Alvarez steps up to the plate? It's never high enough, nor is it generally low enough.
It's literally
Right?
the
So
same one as when Jose Altuve comes up to the plate.
absolutely. I would love to see them simply take the box away, but keep allowing us to see where they expected that the ball crossed the plate or crossed that line. I think that would solve a lot of problems. I think it would also take a little bit of pressure off of these umpires who are getting absolutely blasted. I really do like the umpire scorecards, but I like it for a reason that people don't recognize. Those umpire scorecards, generally, the good ones on Twitter, are actually showing you what the umpire zone ended up being, which is the blotch in the middle, not the box. That's what I want people to start recognizing and understanding. When you listen to guys like Greg Maddux and some of the old pros talk, they all talk about understanding that plate umpire's zone that night and working towards exploiting whatever it may or may not have been. Welcome to baseball. That's gamesmanship. We don't need cameras to do things of that nature. I think it's part of the game. I think we blow these guys up on a regular basis. They make mistakes too, and we got to step back a little bit.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My thing with always been baseball with umpires is Ryan was talking about with like pass interference. Most other sports referees, it's more judgmental. Like basketball, football, like there's some black and white calls, but like some of it's very judgmental. Like holding's not always holding. A foul in basketball is not always a foul in basketball. But with baseball, a catch, it's a catch. A home run is a home run. A strike is a strike. So I feel like we need to utilize that review a lot more because I feel like it's a lot easier in baseball than any other sport to be able to tell, was this a catch? Was this fair? Was it foul? Stuff like that. I completely agree with that, and I agree with the strike zone as well. I think having that zone up on TV is not helping the umpires, and it's
No.
if you go back and look metrically speaking, umpires are better right now than they have literally ever been in the history of baseball. These younger umpires who are coming up through baseball or coming up learning the strike zone, it's technically being looked, those umpires have been absolutely unreal. And I just think we are hating too much on umpires as a whole. I have done it before. Everyone has done it before.
Yeah.
But like analytically speaking, they're better than they ever been.
Well, and that's the again, I people hate this, but like I am so pro umpire. Like their job is insanely hard. I don't care who you are, like to get into the right position, to follow the play as it's happening, at the pace the game is actually being played when you're on the field is not an easy thing to do. The way these pitchers are moving baseballs now, the speeds they're throwing, the way it is really tough to do the job. And they truly are pretty good at it. I also commend the fact that they're willing to be wrong. Think about how much they could have pushed back on replay. They have their own union. They could have pushed hard, really, really hard, to not have something like that because it makes them look bad. It makes us think that they're bad at their job. The reality of the situation is they're not. And human error still exists just because those things are in play. So,
I do. Before we move on this topic, I think that what I find funny is behind all of this, the only problem that I actually see that has happened from umpires of recent is the hook to throw somebody out has become so much quicker than it has
oh,
been in the
yeah.
past. I think of all things for us to be frustrated about. I recognize the surface level stuff that always people see balls, strikes, getting calls correctly. I think I think if we step back and take a look, there's the reminder too that you come to a baseball game to watch X player go do his thing. So when we have these early hooks, that to me is more of an overall level of concern. And I don't even say it's a high level of concern. It is because it's been a little bit different over the last few years. But at the end of the day, I agree. I think we need to take a little bit of a step back and a breath.
Well, and I also say this. I I think that it's a level of protection, right? It's setting a precedent that you, I don't want you talking to me in general. This is not the relationship we have here. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw earlier in the season, Nico Horner got thrown out, and all he looked at the umpire and said was, "You're having a really bad night tonight," and he just immediately tossed him. And it's hard because
Yeah.
like you didn't say anything super disrespectful. However, and we use this analogy a lot, imagine you're sitting in your cubicle and someone who doesn't do the job that you're doing walks over and goes, "You're having a really bad day today at your job," and just walks away. You'd want to hit him in the face,
Happened to me before.
right? Like, you want to hit that person in the face. So, like, understand that's a very excited reaction, but also maybe it's just not worth saying anything.
All right, I think the umpire protection program has definitely reached its final form. What else do we have on the docket here, Flax?
What do we
I
have on the
have a
docket? What do you?
soapbox topic as well.
Yeah, let's do it. Give me your soapbox topic. Well, you got to have good Wi-Fi to give us a soapbox topic.
ETSU, we're going to need you to
You hear
improve
me?
that Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we got you now. Go ahead.
Hold on.
Get
Good.
soapy, Jackson. Yeah, you're good.
So, the thing that I saw a post on Twitter about it today was teams using piggybacks in the playoffs. The example I saw was the Mets. And this is something I've been all in on for a long time, especially with teams with a lot of depth. For me, the first teams came to mind: Mets, Blue Jays, Dodgers, Mariners. I think the most fascinating one was the Mets, and they laid it out perfectly. They had the potential, a game one, start Nolan McLean, David Peterson backing them. Game two, Jonah Tong getting backed by Clay Holmes. Game three, Kodai Senga getting backed by who's the other starter? Kodai Senga getting backed by
Bro?
someone. I don't know. I forgot who it was. Manaya.
Oh,
Kodai Senga
yes.
getting backed by Manaya.
Okay.
And I just think in a playoffs in a short series like that, and if you look analytically, most every single pitcher out there gets worse every time going through the order, especially with a Mets team that doesn't have a true number one ace, but has a bunch of good twos, threes, and fours. I think getting those guys to pitch as much as humanly possible is ideal. So that's something I wanted to bring up and talk about was just teams being able to know when to pull the plug and have good guys behind them.
Jackson, can you real quickly give people a defined definition of piggyback?
For me, it's one or two times through the order, 3 to 4 innings, and then having a designated second guy behind him who, no matter what, is going to be the second pitcher in the game unless they go really deep. But a designated second pitcher behind him that has a built up pitch count and can go 3, 4 innings behind the starter as a plan.
And Jackson, have you seen this operate at a college level?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much every year to start a year out at ETSU through the first month or two of the season, especially when our starting jobs aren't secure. We'll have 6 guys built up as length of starters first guy goes 3 or 4, next guy goes 3 and 4, then we get to the bullpen. It helps us continue tryouts for starters in a way, but we're also not building up a guy to throw 100 pitches in February when we need him to throw 100 pitches in May a whole lot more.
Love it.
Yeah, I like that. That was a good topic.
Go ahead,
I don't have much. No, I don't have much to it. I think that's a great topic. I think you're right. I think that it's the next evolution of the way that teams handle these situations. I already have my soapbox topic. I don't.
Yeah, go. That's what I'm saying. You're done.
No,
You
we
soaped
ruined it
Yeah.
because we actually just talked about it as a group topic. I got to think of a new one. So you go ahead and give yours.
I was buying time. It didn't work very well, obviously.
You knew this was a topic. I don't feel bad.
I know.
I also knew this was a topic, and I
thought of the Mets.
Screwed it up.
I thought of the Mets one 20 minutes ago. Decided I wanted to talk about it.
I love that. That's what a soapbox should be. It's just whatever you feel in the moment, whatever's gripping you, you just go with.
All right, mine is pretty simple. I think that from a front office perspective, I think we need to have more thought process around being creative with how we handle our players from an organizational perspective. You do not have to have every single one of your guys go linearly up and down your organization. You can move guys around left and right. We've seen the White Sox be very effective in pulling their guys in and out of competitive play during the season in order to make minor adjustments on the fly. On the fly is actually a bad word for that, because in reality what they're doing is they're noticing something in game that they could not have seen in the offseason that they want that player to work on at that time, so that they can take them out of competitive competition, take a week to 2 weeks, which can also help arms and bodies to be healthy, and then put them back into competitive competition and see those results almost instantaneously. Especially when we're talking about pitchers, because we've seen them do it with pitchers like Hagen Smith and big lefty Schultz.
Noah Schultz.
Noah Schultz.
I was trying to let you get there, but
well, it wouldn't have happened, so I'm glad you corrected me. But the big piece here is that we, from an analytical perspective, batted ball metrics, spin, all the different things, if we see something that we don't like, we don't have to watch them do something wrong the entire year or something that stunts their growth. I like the thought process of this. I like the mental approach, too, to have an organization that allows open communication between players. It's what the White Sox have done well this year. And by the way, if you look at that White Sox offense, they've scored a lot of runs this year, guys, right? Fuller, Sizemore, that entire organization has done a good job. This is less about the White Sox and more about that thought process. I'd love to see more front offices and more teams understand that you don't have to wait till the offseason to help your players progress. In fact, now that I say that out loud, doesn't everybody on this live stream feel pretty stupid that it's taken this long for somebody to say that? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I think a large part of what you do, not only as a player throughout the years, to try and progress, right? You're not just trying to plateau, but I think, we've always lived in this world of like, don't do too much while you're in the midst of trying to do the thing, right? Like, you're not going to fix the car while you're driving it. And I think when you're in a situation as a team where you can pull over on the side of the road halfway on your trip, fix the car, get back on the road and keep going a little faster, that's okay to do. And it's very clear that the White Sox understood the assignment in this season and said, yeah, we're going to pull over to the side of the road. We're going to fix what we need to fix, and we're going to do it piece by piece as we get there. And it's clearly been working, right? And I think the other hard part for them is that pitching has gone up and down, right? Shane Smith was really good for a stretch. Then he was okay. Now he's been much better the last 3 or 4 starts. Jonathan Cannon was great for a while and has started to dip off. I think a large part of that is just fatigue, right? They're just young arms that haven't thrown this much. But I think when it's all said and done, recognizing that that's an okay thing to do to find growth before you get to the offseason, because it's stuff you actually have opportunity to implement while you're doing the thing, is insanely important. You want to be opportunistic when you're trying to improve.
I spin the analogy, though, towards Formula One racing. On a race weekend, you have generally, without a sprint race, for those who understand Formula One schedule, which Flax does not.
Right over my
Normally, you simply have 3 different practices. You have qualifying and you have a race. Okay. During the 3 practice sessions, all the drivers are doing is taking the car out on the track, running it around on a lap plan, and coming back in, and we're retuning the car. At the end of the day, the actual race is being at the big league level. That's when, no, you're not going to get taken out in order to find out if we can make a change for you to produce. You're going to get sent down to AAA, which is back to those practice laps, in order to get you to where you need to be at the top level. If we start looking at a minor league system, though we do need consistency in gameplay so that guys can continue to get better and show, as those practice laps that we see in Formula One, allowing for times where you come into the pits and you tune your car, or in this case, tune up the hitter, make very minor adjustments in most scenarios, because Colson Montgomery's was a off the wall scenario. Wasn't minor what they did there, in my personal opinion. However, in most cases, it's not going to be huge. And then send your car back out on the track in order to allow these players to see if those adjustments took. Again, I go back to a guy like Josh Naylor, who's talked about a ton recently how he doesn't like to take BP on the field. He prefers BP in small sessions with a coach, multiple other guys who are getting their work in order to see if, one, minor adjustments he's making are the right thing, and 2, if he can take minor adjustments from other players and see what's making them successful into his own scenario. I think it's the same type of thing. I just think we look at this as, okay, it's the season. If you produce, we're going to move you up. If you don't, you're going to stay here. Good luck. That feels like an ass backwards way to do things.
That's funny. It's funny that the way that you talk about it is so simple, right? And I think that's the hardest part when you talk about this as a whole is everyone wants to find the answer. They want to find the solution for how you get guys to play this game well. And the answer is this game's really freaking hard. Sometimes they got to figure it out for themselves, and you just got to put them in the right situation where they get to figure it out for themselves. And I think it's different for every organization. It's different for each player. But on the whole, there's a pretty simple solution, and it's everything you just laid out there.
But it's also 2 things, right? It's consistency in an organization so people understand what the precedent is in being set. Without consistency in an organization, you're going to continue to generally burn down or just have new front offices and new coaches forever, right? And then, like you said, though, Flax, on the flip side, it does depend on each player and each person. I had the opportunity to listen to the Nationals director of player development on with Dan Kolko and Kevin Franzen the other night on the broadcast, and I forget his name, which is terrible of me, but of course I did. And the biggest thing that he talked about is building relationships with the players, because the biggest thing that he has to do is when a change needs to be made, when an injury happens, he has to be able to talk to these guys and deliver X news to these players. If you don't know who each of these guys is as an individual, you will also never figure out how to develop them at the highest rate. Every major league team's goal at the end of the day is to bring guys into their organization, develop them to the highest level of which they can. And if that level is AA, AAA, single A, as long as they develop them to the furthest point that they could, they truly are doing what they're supposed to do at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, I got a soapbox topic.
Oh, he's here.
Down. You step down. Get off.
I'm off the podium.
My soapbox topic is slightly self-serving. But for you listeners out there, I just put into the chat a link to our interview with Brad Lidge. My soapbox topic is go listen to it. It was an unbelievably cool interview with a really, really thoughtful and well-spoken guy who played at the highest level and did it at an elite level at the highest level. Won a World Series with the Phillies, had a ton of saves in his career. We talked a little bit about that. We talked about his archaeology ventures that he's in now. We talked about baseball in general. We talked about Hall of Famer Billy Wagner, who he's still very close with. Tons of really, really cool information in that episode, in that interview. It starts like 12 minutes in, something like that, if you want to skip me and Ryan talking and want to just hear the interview. But there's a link to it in the chat. If you don't want to go to that link or you can't find that link in the chat, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcast, it's on YouTube, on our page. Please go listen to it. It was a really fun episode. Ryan and I are hopefully going to have him back on at some point, but he has no social media, so he cannot promote it himself, so we are promoting it for him. Please go listen. That was my soapbox topic. That's what I had.
Love it. I love it. All right, is it time for me to do the fastest 5 minutes in baseball?
I was only going to say, is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about before we got into the fastest 90 seconds in baseball? Jackson, do you have your timer ready?
Yes, we're so ready.
God, I hope I hope I watched enough baseball this week to sound like a coherent person.
Drum roll,
well,
please.
We went 5 minutes last week, so
can only get better.
Oh, if I say less words, it'll be better. Oh,
and we're getting ready for what we like to call here at Baseball Unstitched, the fastest 90 seconds in Major League Baseball. Ryan goes until he gets under 90 seconds, and then it'll be Jackson's turn. And here we go. Give it to him.
All right, starting in the NL East, the Phillies are playing .500 baseball over the last 10 games, and the Mets are charging in from behind, one of the best hitting teams in all of baseball at the current moment. Juan Soto, turns out he's still good at baseball. The Marlins, the Braves, and the Nationals looking forward to 2026. The Marlins have some great young talent. Make sure you go take a look at what Jacob Marcy has been doing. The National League Central, the Brewers right now, again, 5-5 baseball, with the Cubs also not gaining any ground at 5-5. The biggest disappointment at the current moment, the Cincinnati Reds, who are 3-7 after looking like last week they might sneak into the playoffs. The Cardinals and the Pirates, go watch Paul Skeens. It's worth it. The National League West, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Giants. Oh, wait, it's the Giants who are 9-1 at the current moment, charging back up in the wild card, only 4 games out at the current moment. The Padres are on a skid, 2-8 in their last 10. However, I'm expecting the Padres to bounce back at the right time. Moving to the AL East, the Blue Jays are being hunted down by the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. The Yankees 8-2 over their last 10, the Boston Red Sox 7-3. Big news in Boston is the fact that Roman Anthony is going to be out more than likely till the middle of the playoffs. At the current moment, the Rays, though, are the hottest team in that entire division, and we're going to see if they can make the playoffs down the stretch. The American League Central, the Detroit Tigers, 3-7 over their last 10, rocky road since the All-Star break, and the Kansas City Royals are charging up from behind in the wild card at the current moment. Only 2 games playing 5-5 baseball at the current moment. Moving to the AL West, the Astros and the Mariners are sliding while the Texas Rangers are running. Jack Leiter continues to be arguably the best pitcher in that entire division over his last 3 starts. The Athletics were playing fun baseball. That hasn't continued, unfortunately, but the bats are worth watching. And finally, the Los Angeles Angels. It turns out that Andrew Chafin is still elite. Go take a look at what that lefty's doing over his last 10 games, and that might be the fastest 90 seconds in baseball.
Jackson, how we do? No.
Oh!
2 minutes, 10 seconds.
Okay, we're getting better. We shaved it down from 3.5. We shaved it down from 3.5. So, folks, tune in next week. Not next week. We won't be here next week, but tune in 2 weeks from now to hear and see if Ryan gets under the 90-second mark. For all of us here at Baseball Unstitched, that's going to wrap it up for another weekly roundup. If you didn't catch the whole show, it'll be on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Go listen to all the rest of our episodes. Subscribe to the podcast on any and all platforms. Give us a follow if you're not already on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. And with that, boys, I think we're good. Let's wrap it up. Everybody have a great weekend.
Peace.